Jeffrey's journey into darkness began in what appeared to be a standard Midwestern upbringing in Ohio. Born in 1960, he was an energetic and happy child until a surgery for a double hernia at age 4 seemed to change his personality, leaving him withdrawn and morose. As he grew, his fascinations took a macabre turn. While other kids were playing sports, Jeffrey was in the woods, collecting roadkill and bleaching animal bones with acid provided by his father, a chemist. His father, Lionel Dahmer, unknowingly fueled this fire by teaching his son the scientific way to preserve skeletal remains, thinking it was a harmless interest in biology. This early obsession with the internal structure of living things was the first flickering light on the path toward his eventual crimes. His parents' volatile marriage and subsequent messy divorce left him largely unsupervised, allowing his internal fantasies to fester without intervention. In high school, Dahmer was known for a strange performance art he called doing a Dahmer. He would mimic the tremors and speech patterns of a person with cerebral palsy or someone having a seizure in the middle of hallways or classrooms to get a laugh. This disturbing behavior showed his complete lack of empathy from a young age. Even more bizarre is the fact that he managed to sneak into his high school's yearbook staff photo for the Honor Society, despite not being a member. When the school discovered the prank, they had to black out his face in every copy. These anecdotes reveal a young man who was constantly testing the boundaries of what he could get away with while hiding in plain sight. The horror truly began in 1978, just weeks after his high school graduation. Dahmer committed his first murder, killing a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. He brought the young man to his home, strangled him, and then performed his first dismemberment. He spent the next decade struggling with severe alcoholism and a failed military career, all while the urge to kill grew into an uncontrollable hunger. When he finally moved to Milwaukee and settled into apartment 213 at the Oxford Apartments, the city became his hunting ground. Between 1987 and 1991, Dahmer took the lives of 16 more young men and boys. His methods were beyond comprehension, involving not just murder, but the preservation of body parts, cannibalism, and bizarre experiments. In his most disturbing attempts to create a living zombie, Dahmer would drill holes into the skulls of his unconscious victims and inject hydrochloric acid or boiling water into their frontal lobes. He believed this would destroy their will and keep them in a permanent state of mindless submission, ensuring they would never leave his side. These experiments always failed, resulting in the death of the victim, but the cold, clinical nature of these acts reveals a man who viewed human beings as little more than biological components for his personal collection. He would often keep the skulls of his victims, painting them with gray primer to look like art pieces, and even kept a beating heart in his freezer, which he intended to eat later to become one with the person he had killed. The environment of apartment 213 was a nightmare that defies description. Neighbors often complained of the smell of rotting meat and the sounds of power tools in the middle of the night, yet Dahmer always had a calm, polite excuse. One of the most haunting facts is that Dahmer would frequently bring sandwiches to his neighbors as a gesture of goodwill. After his arrest, many of those neighbors were haunted by the terrifying possibility of what might have been in that meat. He also worked at a chocolate factory, and many have noted the dark irony of a man who spent his days surrounded by sweetness while spending his nights in total depravity. Perhaps the most heartbreaking moment in the entire saga was the case of 14-year-old Konerak Sinthasomphone. The boy managed to escape Dahmer's apartment, dazed and bleeding from the horrific experiments performed on him. He was found by 2 local women who called the police. When officers arrived, Dahmer simply told them the boy was his adult boyfriend and they had just had a lover's quarrel. The police, blinded by prejudice and a desire to avoid a domestic situation, actually helped the boy back into Dahmer's apartment, where he was killed moments after they left. This incident remains a stain on the history of the Milwaukee Police Department, highlighting how systemic bias can lead to fatal consequences. The end of Dahmer's reign of terror came in July 1991, when Tracy Edwards managed to escape the apartment with a pair of handcuffs dangling from his wrist. He flagged down patrolmen, leading them back to the site of the nightmares. When police entered the room, they found a Polaroid camera filled with photos of victims in various stages of dismemberment and a refrigerator containing human remains, including several severed heads. The world was forced to face the reality that such evil could exist in a cramped, ordinary apartment. Dahmer was eventually sentenced to 15 life terms, totaling over 900 years in prison, though his life ended in 1994 when he was beaten to death by a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver, in the Columbia Correctional Institution. Interestingly, during his time in prison, Dahmer became a born-again Christian and was baptized in a whirlpool bath. He allegedly expressed deep remorse, though many psychologists believe this was just another layer of his manipulative personality. On the day he was killed, he was performing his cleaning duties with Scarver and another inmate. Scarver later claimed that Dahmer would play pranks on other inmates by leaving food shaped like severed limbs or organs around the prison, mocking his own gruesome past. This behavior suggests that even behind bars, he never truly left the dark world he had created for himself. In recent years, the interest in Dahmer has exploded once again, largely due to the massive success of the Netflix series starring Evan Peters. The show sparked an intense global debate about the ethics of the true crime genre. While some praised the series for highlighting the systemic racism and police incompetence that allowed Dahmer to stay free, others criticized it for re-traumatizing the families of the victims. The families themselves spoke out, stating that they were never consulted and that seeing their loved ones' murders reenacted for entertainment was a new form of torture. This raises a difficult question for us as consumers: where is the line between historical interest and the exploitation of tragedy? The series also faced backlash for humanizing Dahmer too much, leading to a disturbing trend of fans romanticizing a man who was responsible for unimaginable suffering. From a psychological perspective, Dahmer remains a subject of intense study. He was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a variety of paraphilias, yet he was found legally sane because he understood that his actions were wrong and took steps to hide them. Unlike many serial killers who enjoy the suffering of their victims, Dahmer claimed he wanted to minimize their pain, seeking only total control and permanent companionship. This loneliness does not excuse his actions, but it provides a terrifying look at how a human mind can distort basic needs into monstrous atrocities. He felt that by consuming his victims, he could keep them with him forever, a delusion that led to the most extreme acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. Today, the site of the Oxford Apartments is an empty lot. The building was torn down in an attempt to erase the memory of what happened there, but the ghosts of the story remain. It serves as a grim reminder that we must look closer at the fringes of our society and listen to the voices that are often ignored. Jeffrey Dahmer was not a ghost or a legend, he was a man who lived among us, and his story forces us to confront the reality that the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look exactly like everyone else. The tragedy of his victims, mostly young men of color from marginalized communities, reminds us that the safety of our society depends on the protection of its most vulnerable members. Thank you for joining me on this chilling exploration of one of history's most dark chapters. If this deep dive into the psychology and history of Jeffrey Dahmer provided you with a better understanding of the complexities behind these tragedies, please hit the like button. It helps our community of history and true crime enthusiasts grow and ensures we can keep exploring the truth behind these stories. Do you believe the recent television portrayals of these crimes are necessary for education, or are they purely exploitative? Let me know in the comments below, as I am very interested in your take on the ethics of true crime. If you want to keep exploring the mysteries of the human mind and the dark corners of history, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and always look beneath the surface.